But sometimes diplomacy can yield important results. This time last year, Siamak Namazi was released from Iran's notorious Evin prison in a hostage prisoner swap with the United States. He was the longest held American in Iran, a horrifying 8-year ordeal. Now, 6 months before his release, Namazi had bravely called into this program from inside Evin to make an emotional plea to President Biden. Take a listen.
The other hostages and I desperately need President Biden to finally hear us out, to finally hear our cry for help and bring us home.
Eventually, he and 4 other Iranian Americans were released, and a year later, he is ready to talk for the first time in this exclusive interview right here in New York City. Siamak, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
The last time you talked to us was from Evin jail in March of 2023. And it took another several months for you to be free. A year ago, you came back to the United States, almost exactly a year ago. What's this year been like? How do you feel free?
Well, Christian, first of all, it is such a joy to be talking to you and not worrying about someone dragging me to a solitary cell somewhere because of it. So, thank you for that. Do I feel free? I think the most dominant feeling that I have is gratitude. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to many people, particularly President Biden, who made a very difficult choice and struck the deal. I'm sure it was a very difficult deal for him to strike that brought us home. It took many more years than I hoped that it would. I was there 8 years.
The longest held.
The longest held. But the truth is, when you get out of a dungeon after 8 years, you don't just return to a normal life. It's overly optimistic. You don't just kind of shake it off. It's a 8-year earthquake that hits your life, and it leaves a lot of destruction. But I would say I do feel very free in the U.S., and I tried to live the freest life I could even when I was in Evin.
What were the basics? I mean, you had to learn to live outside those confines again.
Right. Human beings are very interesting. We adapt to where we are. So I would say it takes a long time to learn to adapt to prison, and then it takes a long time to learn to adapt to come out. It's a very difficult process. I remember having to set an alarm to remind myself to leave the apartment. You know, I remember once I hadn't left for 3 days, and I realized why. I just wasn't used to doing that. You know, so yeah, there's a lot to learn again. You know, carrying keys, carrying a wallet, cars. That 8 years is a long, long, long time. Society changes. I felt for my octogenarian parents that, you know, I didn't know how to do simple things. A friend would say, grab an Uber and come over, and I would have to explain I have absolutely no idea how to do that. You know, so you come out with no IDs, accounts frozen, and yeah, it takes a while.
Did the U.S. government, did they give you the sort of building blocks, the stepping stones to come out, or what?
No, I think that's something that needs to be worked on, because you could imagine that even when hardened criminals get out of prison here, there'd be a dozen church programs and state programs and federal programs to reintegrate. For us, it's a goodbye, good luck. There are some wonderful NGOs that former hostages and their families usually volunteer in, and there's some wonderful, wonderful people who reach out to you, and I think it's their goodness that helps us maneuver through it. But no, there really isn't.
And what about debriefing? You know, you had spent all these years in captivity by one of America's biggest adversaries. They want to know, surely, about the Revolutionary Guard, about how you were treated, about what things might have been said or done. Did you?
There has been no debriefing.
But just to be clear, the US government did not come and plumb you for your experience, your information, your knowledge about this regime.
No, and oddly, because you know, 8 years, I would say, probably in this country, I've clocked the most hours negotiating with the Revolutionary Guards. But no, there has been no debriefings. I asked the other hostages. The ones that I have asked have all said there are no debriefings. So yes, I was pretty surprised by that as well.
Can we go back to the beginning a little bit? You were a businessman, you had family in Iran, you were visiting regularly. And then once you went, you tried to come out, and they grabbed you at the airport as you were leaving.
Correct.
2015.
Yes.
Around the time of the negotiations for the Iran nuclear deal.
Correct. I went to Iran for a funeral, and as you said, at that point, it was the peak of Iran-US relations when we had former Secretary Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif walking around Vienna. And on the way back, they first barred me from leaving the country. I was approached by a man in a plain suit who said, you know, come with me. After that, I was interrogated off-site illegally for 3 months, and then I was finally arrested. I was charged formally with cooperating with a hostile state, referring to the United States of America.
And you are American?
I am a dual citizen I'm born in Iran and I'm American. But the key thing they said, the key statement, was that when we arrested him, for 3 decades, he had been building a network within Iran to infiltrate and topple the Islamic Republic with the cooperation of the hostile US state. Now, I was arrested at 44, so these guys are pretty much claiming that when I was learning to skateboard with my buddy Dave in White Plains, New York, I was actually subverting the Islamic Republic.
When you were like 12 years old?
14, yes.
And there's no doubt in your mind that they took you purely, as you told me when you called out of prison, for your blue passport, because you're an American, because you're a valuable pawn.
They made it extremely clear, repeatedly to me, that you will not be released without a deal with the US.
You said that for the first couple of years you were in solitary confinement for the most part. You were in the Revolutionary Guards portion of the prison,
27 months.
27 months, which was really hard.
Yes.
You said they basically fed you like a dog under the door, that you were beaten up. Can you tell us more now that you couldn't tell us back then of how they treated you for those 2 years?
I refer to it, I think, as unutterable indignities. Look, when I was first taken in and thrown in a solitary cell, and anyone who has not experienced that won't understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about something the size of a closet, 3 paces, and I'm not a big guy, 3 of my paces isn't that great, and walled off. It's a very difficult thing. By Iranian law, that alone, by Iranian law, that is defined as torture, to throw someone in there. I was thrown in. My interrogators told me that day that, look, unless you cooperate, the word cooperate, I'm definitely in Farsi allergic to that, which means unless you do whatever we ask you to, you are going to be here until your teeth and your hair are the same color, and our methodology of how we're talking is going to change. They were clear about that. I didn't believe that.
There was a threat of violence.
Yes. In the solitary cell, I started assessing my situation, and I started developing strategy, and I developed some idea of where I am. I looked at the scratches that the prisoners leave on the wall. The least that I saw was about 3. The most that I saw was 32. The cluster, the mode kind of, that's a geeky MBA side of me, was around 2 weeks. So I figured, okay, I'm probably going to be in this situation for 2 weeks, most a month, and then they're going to take me to a less horrible room. I was in that room for 2 months, and then overall about 8 months of solitary confinement.
So you thought 2 weeks, but you were 8 months all in all?
Of solitary confinement, yes. I assumed that because I'm a hostage and I have value, they will not harm me. Unfortunately, that assumption was proven wrong. And
what did they do?
You know, I got to tell you that the physical part of what they do isn't, you know, it's not like they're pulling your nail, but you're blindfolded. And unfortunately, the thugs are as bad as their job as everyone else in that rotten system. I believe they don't mean to harm you as much as they do, but they don't understand simple things like when you toss a person who is blindfolded, I don't know that's a wall in front of me and I'm going to go face first into it, or I don't know there's a staircase and I'm going to go rolling down. So
Did that happen?
I did, yes. Both of those things happened. There were that part still you could endure, but not day after day after day nonstop. There was a lot of humiliation that I'm not comfortable talking about, and I mean unutterable because it had a profound effect on me. It's just I still haven't even gotten to talking about it fully in therapy. It's just they humiliate you, and they always do this while you're blindfolded. They're that cowardly.
So you saw your mom at a visit
Yes.
after a period of solitary, when you first or second got to see her, and they told you what to tell her or not to tell her?
I saw my mom the first time after 6 weeks of solitary. This was right before they started beating me, and the poor woman, the first time she saw me, she didn't recognize me. I looked like Saddam when they pulled him out of the hole. I had a long beard, and I mean, at the distance we're standing, I remember her eyes, wondering, looking for me, and then she realized it's me, and I remember her sobbing. And I remember trying to make her laugh by telling her, I look like Saddam. They had actually given her a visit, told her that they're about to execute me. This is going to be the last meeting unless she gets me to agree to do a confession. Right. The second time, then they started a period of several weeks of that the beatings started, and again, I want to emphasize it. The beatings are nothing you can't handle if it's a one-off thing. If they do it repeatedly and with a humiliating factor, and in those circumstances, it's much scarier than I could tell you, especially when I know people like Canadian photographer Zahra Kazemi died that way. Eventually, I think it was a few months down the road, they called me out and said, okay, you have a visit. It's 7 minutes. They spend about 15 minutes threatening me about what would happen if I say anything but, Mom, I'm okay, the food is great, everything's fantastic, people should holiday here. So flanked by my interrogators, I enter the room even before sitting. I say, hi, Mom, these guys have been torturing me. I need you to go public on this. I need you to... I'm sorry. Okay. I put her through a lot. It was a very difficult decision because I was telling her that they're going to start threatening you, and they started yelling at me. You can't say that. It's actually, you can't do that. And I told her, look at me. I'm not in an insane asylum. I know what I'm doing. Print a letter to the Supreme Leader, open letter. Say, I saw my son, and repeat, my son claimed, my son claimed. Never say anything but my son claimed.
That you were being tortured. My son claimed that he's being tortured.
Yeah.
You informed your mother. Clearly she informed others. People knew that you were being wrongfully treated, including, I assume, in the United States. I assume the government and the others, they knew.
They did.
You were left behind by the Obama administration.
Correct.
After the negotiations that got the nuclear deal, Jason Rezaian.
Everyone else, every confirmed, I use the word confirmed because we didn't know the status of Bob Levinson at that time. Everyone else except me.
And that happened again under the Trump administration?
Correct. Trump left me behind twice.
Trump had 2 negotiations with Iran to get others out.
Correct.
And you were left behind.
Yes.
Why?
I think this is a question really that we should be asking American officials. I personally think it was, well, I more than think. What I understand is that this is a tactic that the Iranians use. I've seen the same tactic used by the Russians when it came to Paul Whelan. When they have what I would refer to as a star hostage, which is a hostage that has a lot of support by a big lobby in the US, whether it's a media or it's a famous player. Iran understood that the US wanted Jason out.
Jason Rezaian of the
Yes,
Washington Post.
correct. And so they said, if you want to talk about Siamak, this is going to take weeks more. I think the U.S. wanted the hostages released at the same time as the JCPOA was being implemented. And Secretary Kerry believed then Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, allegedly, who Zarif had said that I'll get Siamak out within a few weeks, and Secretary Kerry chose to take Mr. Zarif's word. So they left me behind. As far as Iran is concerned, they want to create a perpetuity in their hostage-taking, right?
And to be clear, they knew you were being tortured.
Yes, I have a letter. After I was left behind, my parents wrote the Secretary of State basically saying, what the hell? Much nicer than that. And he reiterated that he has been trying for my release, working hard for my release, and he'll continue to do so. And that there was a expression of upset and sympathy for, said, I don't remember the words, but, saying I feel bad, or I'm sorry to hear that your son is being mistreated. My understanding is that the Trump administration was faced with a different choice, that the Iranians said, I want that guy and I'm willing to give this guy for him. And that happened twice. And they chose to make that decision.
Can I ask you at this point, Trump himself, after you were released and the deal involved unfreezing Iranian money that South Korea had given them for a reason. It was Iranian money, not American dollars. Anyway, he's like, oh, this is appeasement. Others were saying this is appeasement. As you know, people have said, oh, you should never deal with the regime in any way, form or fashion. What is your answer to that?
Christian, I will answer that as a former hostage and tell you we have a duty to get out our people from foreign dungeons when they have done nothing, and the only reason they're in there is because they carry a blue passport, and their only way out is through a deal. Unfortunately, we have to make distasteful deals to get out our people. But I'll tell you something, no one is as angry, no one is as disgusted as the fact that the Islamic Republic, that this horrible regime profited from blighting my life than me and the other hostages in our families. They took my father. They have done things that I'm not able to tell my therapist yet, and I can't even speak about it. I am upset that they profited from this, but what other choice is there? Are you just going to let an American rot? But we have two obligations. Get our people out, even if it means holding our nose and doing these distasteful deals. The second part is we have to deter hostage-taking to begin with. And I think, as grateful as I am, and I would really love to shake President Biden's hand one day, I really would. As grateful as I am for this, I have a polarity of emotions going on. We have to do something to stop this, and we don't. There is absolutely zero deterrence for hostage-taking. If you and I were advisors to one of these rogue states, we would say this is a great business.
What is the deterrent? Because they're going to say, don't pay them, but it'll stop.
No. As I said, you can do two things at once. This is a business. What do they want? They want one or two things. Either their money's locked up somewhere that they want released, or they want one of their thugs out. Someone who was tried in a proper court because of their wrongdoing. They want they want to exchange it. This is a mafia business. Hostage diplomacy is a game of rugby. We should stop treating it like chess.
You were getting more and more desperate because nothing seemed to work to get you out. But you were displaying quite a lot of what we might call chutzpah. You had written to the New York Times an open letter, right? You had done a hunger strike. And then you decided to do an interview with us. That was very, very risky. And you were basically trying to beg the Biden administration through a big media platform to take the case seriously, you and the others who were in there. Where did you get that risk-taking? Where did you get that chutzpah from?
Desperation. 8 years. When I spoke to you, it was 7.5 years. As you pointed out, I was left behind 3 times at that point. I had a program. I'd get up. It was organized. You know, think about how to be a pain in the ass. Literally, it was built in.
You were resisting.
I was resisting. I thought that's... You have 2 choices as a hostage, and both of them make immense sense. One is to turn around and say, I have to survive this, and my people outside will eventually free me. It makes sense. It's me, they're an army, literally. The Revolutionary Guards have taken me. It's not just an army, it's an army with the full power of a state. You have a judiciary, a prison system, the media, the television is blaring all sorts of false documentaries about you. So it makes no sense to fight them, and I can understand that. Your fight in that decision is with the day-to-day boredom and to keep sane and to keep healthy for when you get out. Choice 2 is you turn around and say, what can I do that if everyone acted the way I did, I would raise the cost where they couldn't do this so easily. And I think that you will understand how you are cut if you spend enough time in there. And I think part of my reaction to the unutterable indignities was that I have to gain my own respect back for myself, I had to fight them.
And you got to us at CNN.
I got through you by, I mean, as you know very well, this was, I wish I could take credit for this. It was the brainchild of one of my superheroes. I have several, but he's definitely up there on the list. Jared Genzer, my pro bono human rights lawyer here. I understood that hostage deals, if they don't happen quickly, are likely to get derailed. And if they wanted to, by now it would have finished. It sent me a message. The message was that I didn't think President Biden is committed to making the deal. That was my assessment. So I called Jared. I told him that I don't think there's that commitment. I had done a hunger strike already. I basically got no love back. And so I said, I need to be heard. I need President Biden to hear my voice. And Jared, a couple of years before that, had suggested maybe I do an interview from prison. I thought we're talking about something much smaller. I told him I need to kick under the table so that if this deal doesn't happen, I need to know that I have done everything in my power, everything I could have done. If I'm here 2 years from now, past my 10 years, I don't look back and think maybe there was something. And he said, okay, give me 24 hours and call me back. And then to my horror, he had escalated my idea to something which was to talk to you, and I started hyperventilating, I think. He said, take a deep breath. I heard you, you're right. But if you want to kick under the table, if you want to be heard the way you want to be heard, it's only through talking to on CNN to Amanpour. It was a difficult decision, but as I said, risks are, when you say chutzpah, how would I have the guts not to do it at that point? What I looked at, what happens? 2 scenarios. And I'd learned to look at 2 worst case scenarios. I do this interview, I don't get freed, and these guys come and essentially give me another beating that had happened and throw me back in solitary for a few months. I knew I could live that. Scenario 2, I don't do this, there is no deal, and I'm wondering in 3 years, what if I'd done this interview and I'd be out? And so I made the decision to do the interview. My family made the mistake that most of the families do. When a hostage is first taken, a lot of people come around, tell them, be quiet, do not pull this into a Gordian knot, let's sort this quietly. The State Department will tell you that, as would any other foreign ministry, whether you're Australian or Swedish or whoever, as would the analysts around it. It is a mistake. I can't emphasize that enough. If you are taken as a hostage, you need to make noise. It is politically costly for a president to make the decision to bring you out. It is a terrible political decision to make unless they have a superstar hostage where they gain something because there's political value.
You took one more really brave and principled decision when you were then being freed finally, because you were heard, and you told the Revolutionary Guards that you have red lines.
Yeah.
You know, if they start playing around and demanding you do something extra for your freedom or say something for your freedom, you weren't going to do it.
Christian, when the deal finally happened, and again, I can't express enough gratitude that that decision was made and everyone involved to do it. I knew that I'd seen hostages who went to the brink of freedom all the way to the plane and came back. There is no hostage deal is complete until you leave the airspace of that country. It is just not done. So I started telling them, no, I'm the loose cannon here. And I started making demands, and I told them that, you know, if you want to blow up this deal, do what you did to Nazanin Zaghari and ask for a signed confession by the plane. I won't do it. I won't get on. If I'm teaching you, you want to blow up this deal, do that. I would tell them, I'm on the brink, don't push me. I only have 2 years left of my sentence. Maybe in the last minute I'll decide, you know what, I don't want to be sold. I knew I didn't have another way out, but I also knew that these guys, I felt that they should feel not to push me. It's a bad idea, you know.
And they didn't make you sign a confession. And finally, about 2 weeks after you were finally on American soil and back home here, October 7th happened. Hamas waged war on Israel. Israel then still going through a massive war in the Middle East. Do you have any doubt in your mind that had this not been done before October 7th, you would be sitting here today?
I don't, but I think that the interview that I did with you was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. There are so many people, including in the Obama administration, including in the Trump administration and the Biden administration, and so many wonderful, wonderful people who pushed for this over years and years and years for this to finally happen. But I look at it and I think, with your help, we managed to expedite the decision making. As you correctly pointed out, if that deal that brought me and the other hostages home was delayed by 3 weeks, I could not see any way for a US president to agree to it. So I guess thank you.
Thank God it happened when it happened. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And Siamak tells me that he endured not only the worst of humanity, but he encountered the best too, and that's also how he survived.